Salt of the Earth Farm Stories is proudly brought to you by Grigg Media. From generations-old family farms to innovative sustainable practices, each episode offers a glimpse into the resilience, passion and dedication of Australian farmers and explores the profound connection between people and the land. Be inspired by the stories of those who sow the seeds of the future.
Today, we're heading back to Bungaree, just outside of Ballarat, Victoria, for another chat with my father, Ian Grigg. Dad's lived his whole life on this farm, and in this episode, we dive into his experiences surviving off the land, making some gutsy decisions, and how farming today has evolved into a big business. We also relive the Bungaree Clydesdale Festival and chat about the values that have shaped his life, some memorable mishaps, and the way a few coins in the front pocket can make you feel wealthy. But first, I ask him about the heart of rural life, country communities, and how farmers look out for one another. So sit back, relax, and join us for this journey of farming life in Bungaree. Farming was and still is an important part of a country community. Was the community spirit alive and well back then when you were growing up?
Yes, pretty much so. We all had at the fire brigade, they had their fire brigade demonstrations each year. Initially when I first started, I was 14 I think when I joined, and we had an old Ford Blitz or a Chev Blitz truck, a big old army thing with a tank, and we used to go around to the fire demonstrations with that, and was part of the community. And
Bungaree is surrounded by a lot of other farming areas. What's the relationship like between local farmers and how do you support one another?
oh look, it is very good nowadays. People all do get on. Once upon a time, maybe there was a bit of a line amongst different farmers, but look, you've got to be a good farmer these days to survive. So different years ago, you just survived on the land with a little patch of potatoes. Most farmers grew all their own veggies, had their own meat, and they really didn't need to go to a supermarket. They made their own butter and had their own cream. Whereas nowadays, farming is a very big business that needs managing very well.
I love it how you're all working together, in particular with the Trigg family sharing machinery.
Yes, we do. We still share some machinery, and if need be, we're there to help one another. Years ago, when we used to do a lot of bales of hay, if we weren't quite finished by Christmas, the Trigg boys would come up and help us cart them all in, and just to get finished by Christmas, because we used to do around about 20-odd thousand bales of hay, some to sell and some to feed the cows.
I remember it was a lot. So in the early 80s, it was time to get out of dairy, and why?
Oh, look, I just got over dairies and I needed a bit more variety in life, and had the odd Sunday off when you wanted it, and which you could do, and if it need be, well, you still work. But we haven't looked back since we gave away cows, as we would have had to survive. We would have had to expand it with more land and more cows, and that's the reason why we've gone the way we have.
And that was the time when spuds got bigger for you, didn't it?
It did get bigger, and then we got more and more help. And then at times, to get on top of things, when we bought land, we had to work a bit harder. And there at one stage, Russell and I, after our farm work, we took on taking water to Melbourne, and he used to do the early morning trips. He perhaps leave at 5 o'clock. The odd time I used to always do the night trip to Melbourne. We'd do our day's work, and at 7 o'clock when we finished tea, I'd go to Melbourne and deliver a truckload of water there, and you're back home again at 11:30, midnight, a lot of nights. And we did that for a little while, and then we gave that away and had plenty to do at home.
But you've always had to diversify a little bit, haven't you?
Oh yes, we did diversify, yes. Russell, when he first got going, he had a round baler that did contracting, and he did quite well out of that, and now we're just virtually wholly and solely home.
Machinery got better and technology came into the...
Technology, yes, it got better and better, with especially potato machinery, but very, very dear. To get a single row harvester nowadays, I think they're around $450,000, and
Wow.
and you need a at least a $200,000 tractor to pull it, so there's only two items.
Well, thank goodness we're not picking spuds up off the ground anymore. Although it was a good little earner for me. I'd get $10 per half-ton box. My record was 7 bins on a Saturday, and that was with Pop helping me fill the last bin just on dark.
Yes, that was right. You worked very, very hard at all that, and you survived and done very well, but you did have some wet, cold days picking up potatoes by hand, but that's what life was all about then. You had to work hard to survive.
So you are now your certified seed growers. What does that mean?
The certified seed, well, we did grow foundation seed from mini tubers, which is grown at the laboratories, disease-free, and then you had to try and keep them that way. And then we used to send seed out to other seed growers, but nowadays people grow their own. But you have got to keep them very, very clean with the soil being tested for PCN, and they're inspected twice during the growing season, and then they're leaf tested to make sure they're still disease-free. And it is a very much hands-on operation growing potatoes. And then when they are dug and graded, they've got to be inspected once again for the cleanliness of the skin and no damage.
So spuds make it a busy year, doesn't it? From the ground getting worked, planting, watering is hectic, growing, and then digging. I remember it's often 2 a.m. irrigator changes, blown pipes in the middle of the night. How did you deal with that, especially when you're here on your own?
Oh, look, we managed. When especially shifting pipes, we all had to do it at some stage, but the hard work came in there is when the rows all closed up, then you couldn't get the pipes down. So you'd have to go along and spread the rows open by hand as if you're swimming, going down a row to open up to put your pipes in. And if you got 2 shifts a day in, you were doing quite well without many problems. But nowadays it's all gone to maybe hard hoses or more the lateral moves, centre pivots. Most people have got those and make it a lot more easier, but once again it involves a lot of money getting them all set up.
And Bungaree has a special soil type, really good for spuds. Tell me about that.
Yes, it's Bungaree and more north of us a little bit is perhaps some of the best soil in Victoria, I think, perhaps more north of us. Beautiful red soil, and some of the hills, and it is known of God's country in some places, because we've seemed as though we've got a lot of greenery around here. We're lucky enough to get the rain at the right time and plenty of fertilisers, and it does look good.
Do you think there's ever any risk in the future of losing this soil with this country being developed?
Or I'll never see it, hopefully, but I think there's enough people in the district here won't let any development go through, although they're trying hard at the moment. But no, I would never want to see development come through here, because it's rich soil for growing all sorts of vegetables.
So, and of course, it's not all about spuds. It's mixed farming here, and this can create a lot of work with not many weeks off in the year for holidays, juggling different crops and livestock. You're also experimenting in various crops and seem to be doing very well with pyrethrum.
Yes,
how's that going?
Pyrethrum is going quite well. We have a farm at Warren Heap, and we seem as though we can grow good pyrethrum over there, which pyrethrum is mainly for fly spray, but it requires a lot of chemical, but it's probably 18 months before you get a paying crop off it. But the people that organise it all will give you a part payment during the growing season when you're not getting anything from it.
But so it's contracted to start with?
Yes, it is all contracted, and it's at the stage where there are a little tiny flower and a very, very tiny seed in the centre of it. When it's ready, it's windrowed, and then there's a team of headers come through, or harvesters, which they might, if it's a big paddock, you might get 4 or 5 headers in a paddock, and the trucks all line up and to fill them up quickly, and it is all harvested, goes to Ballarat to be palletised, which I think now they're building their own factory to palletise it, but in saying that when it leaves Ballarat, it goes to Tasmania in containers to have the oil finally extracted from it and then overseas.
And that's then to formulate an insecticide.
For fly spray and that type of thing.
So do you think there could be an expected surge in demand for natural insecticides?
Yes, there's a big demand for it all now, which there's more and more growers growing pyrethrum. To me, it's not a handsome crop.
I did read the other day Australia is a global leader at the moment in pyrethrum.
Yes, I think it is. They're always looking for someone else to grow pyrethrum, to expand it all. The more they expand, the price will go up for it. So it's a good incentive to grow more.
So you've seen a lot of changes in farming techniques over the decades. How has technology shaped the way you farm today?
Yes, Mother Nature can control a lot of our life here, I feel. You've got to work with it a bit, but it has changed. There's probably more mechanism. Potatoes are a big part of everybody's life here now, and there's more canola grown around here now and grain crops, which it wasn't some years ago, but yeah, it's a big cropping area. It's more so canola through here now.
And what's the cycle in a paddock for potatoes? You can't put spuds in a same paddock every year.
We ourselves, all seed growers, are supposed to have a 5-year gap in between growing potatoes so that to keep the ground as clean as possible without any self-sown ones in them and diseases. But if you're growing a commercial crop, some will grow them every second year, but we ourselves with seed is every 5 years.
So after a crop of spuds, would you put a legume in it or a wheat or something?
It depends. If you've got your potatoes early, you might put a crop of wheat in. If you're a bit later, you perhaps go for barley, but a lot of times now we like to grow rape for our fat lambs when they're in season.
And when Pop was still working here on the farm, there were 3 generations with Pop, yourself and Russell. And now there are still 3 generations with yourself, Russell and Phil, and a grandson. That must feel good.
It does.
That's Kyle coming home on the farm.
Yes, it does. The 2 boys, Russell and Phil, they've done a wonderful job here. We wouldn't be where we are today with so much land. They've managed it very, very well. To me, they've really, really exceeded. And now Kyle's home and he's very clever with his technology. But he just loves driving headers at this stage. He hasn't long been back from Canada, driving headers over there, and now he's back way again at the moment, driving. But eventually, I think he will come home, and which does make me feel very proud.
So with farming, you've got to make a lot of gutsy decisions, don't you?
Yes, Russell and Phil are very good at that. And we do have quite a lot of fat lambs, and Phil looks after that side. Russell looks after the potato side of things and a bit of cropping and spraying, but the 2 boys get on perfectly well. There's never been a crossword, but if there's a decision to be made, it's all corresponded very, very well, and it's always a unanimous decision.
Works so well. What's the most challenging part of farming today?
Oh, look, probably the costs of fertiliser and fuel, all general costs, even all your insurance, the rates, all those things you've got to take into factor. It's just farming is a real business to stay on top of things now. Once upon a time when we were farming, you maybe only grew 1 crop off your land per year, but now as soon as you finish with one, you've got to have something else put back in it and do the best you can with it.
And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, don't we?
We do.
How do you think farming practices will evolve over the next 10, 20 or 30 years?
Oh, I just hate to think how it'll all go. I just think it has come a long way in my lifetime, how it has transformed into a much, much busier life and more business-like run farms, but I just don't know how much more it will progress. But land has got extremely dear now, and it just makes you wonder how people can go on. But I think it just takes 1 farm paid for, and then if you buy another one, well, there'll be 2 farms will pay for 1 then. So that's the only way. But any young person nowadays, he would be fighting a losing battle to buy land to start up farming. It's only the existing farmer that can cope.
Yeah. So let's go back to our topic of Clydesdale horses. Pop loved them, and you grew fond of them too, didn't you?
Yes, I did enjoy them. They were the gentle giants, as they call them, but they were very placid. I used to enjoy the Sunday morning sometimes. I had two of them here, and I used to perhaps put them in a lorry that I had. Blossom and Rosie I had. One was a black one, another one was a bay one, and I put the pair of them in a lorry and go for a drive around the block. It'd take me over an hour to drive around, and but it was very pleasurable.
I remember. And then there was this strong interest in antique farm machinery.
Yes, well, Pop started all that off, and I think our first bit we got was a single furrow plough, and then the two single furrow plough comes then there's several. I think now we might have probably 25 different types of single furrow ploughs. There's a reversible, and there's a one that lifts potatoes up out of the ground, and they were all very interesting. There's some there, orchard ploughs, and then there's competition ploughs I got from Tasmania at one stage. And yeah, they're all very interesting, which they still belong here.
Well, this shed we sit here in today is quite remarkable. Firstly, it's a massive shed, chock-a-block, and it's all so interesting. And I actually think there's a whole new episode in here for us one day to talk about the different implements and pieces of equipment here in this shed. At the moment, I'm looking at a brewery lorry, to a butcher's cart, a nightman's cart, to every type of plough seat, to foam boxes and ice chests. And then at one point when I was a teenager, you started the Bungaree Clydesdale Festival, and this got really big. One year there was something like 70 or 80 working Clydesdales here at the festival, is that right?
Yes, that was right, yes. With the working Clydesdales, they all had to do something. You couldn't bring a horse along and lead it around to have him on show. He had to work. Another friend, he had 10 or 11 horses in a scarifier working out the back as a team. And I have driven those team of horses for a little while at Warwick Nabil when we used to demonstrate there. And that was a real challenge to drive that many horses, to concentrate and hold them all together. But anyway, they were working here. And there'd be another team in a binder. We used to cut hay here and put it into sheaves. And then people had the art to learn how to stook sheaves. There'd be some others in a mower. And then we had another one in a horseworks that used to go round and round in circles to cut chaff.
I remember that. There was making butter and...
Oh, yes, there was making butter, and there was...
rope making?
Rope making, and there was all sorts of things. Very educational for town people who used to come out to see how it was all done.
We had, there was more than a few thousand people that would come out over a weekend.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of people. They ran a couple of buses up from Melbourne, I think, at one stage for one, but we did have some wet weather some stages, and that put a moz on things, but insurance was, again, the thing that was a bigger problem there, and it created a lot of work. So,
yeah, and relying a lot of the community to help.
Yes, and the community did come to help.
Now, you still have your first Land Cruiser you bought for the farm, and we're looking at it at the moment. Is that a 69 model?
It's a 69 model, 3-speed gearbox in it. It had only done 14,000 miles, I think, or 12 when we bought it. And we used it, and then it got put away in the shed probably for 30 years. And then we thought it was time to...
give it a bit of love.
Give it a bit of love, and it got all the love. And then I got halfway through restoring it, and I thought, this is a lot of money. And I was going to stop, and I thought, what a waste. So anyway, we finished the project, and it is worth a lot of money now. And Kyle, my grandson, he got to and did a lot of work to it. He made a new tray, and it's very well admired by now.
Well, it's an amazing vehicle now.
But originally we did drive it to the Gulf with the Trigg boys and another couple of friends of Elliot. So we went up to the Gulf in it. We had a 44 drum of petrol on the back and an old freezer.
Yep.
Used to keep our food in with a Villiers engine to drive it, to try and keep the food cold, but it would freeze, and then it'd thaw, and then it'd freeze again, and it was a bit of a thing.
And your mattress was right beside the petrol drum in the back of the ute.
Yeah, you slept beside the petrol drum, and I had a little mattress there. But I remember the morning we did leave. We got as far as Castlemaine, and we had to have morning tea.
It went to Tilpa quite a few times.
Yes, it went to Tilpa. Yeah, there was always three of us were in the front seat. And Russell, I remember when his first trip and Tony came, they were so excited about a pig that we saw, and then he was stopped looking at the cruiser, and then the boys got out to have a better look at him, and then they got chased, so they had to do a bit of a run around the cruiser and jump in.
I'll have to remind them of that. So we lost Mum in 2012 from a lifelong illness, and you've been living here on your own. Does it get lonely?
Yeah, some nights it gets lonely. Even now, I think one of my better companies is the open fire. I can just lie here of a night time in front of the heater and cook, turn the tally off. I quite enjoy that, but it does get lonely. I miss you, miss the company. But after then, I sort of enjoyed doing a bit of travelling the Sunday afternoon and going around antique shops, just looking and interesting, and enjoy it. But in the last 18 months, I got talked into a Cocker Spaniel. And anyway, a little Cocker Spaniel came along, a little pup, and his name's Bob, and he's the most intelligent little fellow I've got. So he has 20 minutes to half an hour every night in here with me.
I reckon you could stretch it out to 2 hours for Bob.
I know he gets a bit hectic inside sometimes, but the dear little fella, he went and had his little operation a while back, and he came home with his little funnel on his head, and he'd had an anaesthetic, and I thought I'll leave him in the laundry one night, and he cried. So that night I took him into my bedroom, and I went to bed, and he laid on top of the bed, and he snuggled in alongside me all night, and he didn't move.
Perfect. Perfect. And Bob has a special friend, or possibly a sister, Mary.
Yes.
Who your friend Kathy looks after.
My friend Kathy, yes, we both got them the same day.
Are they brother and sister?
They're brother and sister.
So what life lessons has farming taught you that stayed with you?
Well, to work hard. When I first started off, my bit of pocket money was at the front here was the Western Highway, and I used to walk the road probably every 6 weeks, gathering up beer bottles. At the end of the year, we'd bag them all up again and take them to the bottle-o, and that was always quite good pocket money.
What advice would you give to the younger generation thinking about entering farming today?
Well, it would be a very tough decision to make. I admire them if they're willing to have a go, but it's not an easy life, especially with the cost of machinery. But if you've got the love of farming, why not give it a go?
It takes a lot of patience and resilience, farming, doesn't it? And looking back, would you have done anything differently with farming?
No, not really. No, I'm very happy with what we're doing now, and it's challenging, as I just said, but very rewarding.
All right, we're up to the off-the-wall questions. This is the fun part. You can answer as many or as little as you like. They're just short answers. Here we go. Over the years, you've seen your fair share of farming mishaps. Do you have any funny or memorable ones?
Yes, I always used to drive the tractor and the digger. And one year we're down the creek on a bit of a slope, and I was turning the digger around very, very carefully, and the wheel went down a furrow, and I was just going so careful watching it, and all of a sudden the digger went up one side, and I watched and I thought, oh my God, it's going to go over. So it just went over so gentle on its side, and there was Mark Bayard and Brett Boyd were on the back. And Brett yells out, hey Barn, we're going over. One got down on the floor and the other one went over on top of him. And the tractor wheel went up in the air, and I couldn't get out of the tractor for fear the tractor would tip over, so I had to get out the other side. And they laughed and laughed, and I yelled out, it's no laughing matter. And within minutes of that, the trucks were going through on the road, and it was radioed through the district that Grigg's digger's gone over, all within minutes. And so that was one of it. And then
this is the mishap down at the dam here?
Down at the dam,
and it was right
yes.
near the dam bank, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. Oh yes. Then we had to get out and pick all the spuds up by hand and put them in a box and get the crane out to lift the digger up. Oh, what a drama.
Well, we can talk about it now, I suppose. It was 20 years ago, probably. Do you have a favourite tool or piece of equipment you just can't live without?
Oh yes, my pocket knife. I'm not stressed for that. My pocket knife in my pocket.
Yeah,
It's like when you were going out, you always had to have your watch on your wrist.
that's right. And you always used to take a 50-cent piece, a 20-cent piece, a couple of tens and a couple of fives. You loose change in your pocket too, didn't you?
Oh yes, it made you feel wealthy if you had a hand in your pocket with some coins to rattle.
What do you enjoy doing when you're not working on the farm? How do you like to unwind?
Oh look, I like fiddling around out in the shed. Not that it's clean and tidy, but I like fiddling out there with different things. I like all my Clark saucepans and pots, and I enjoy all them to clean them up and put them all together. And the challenge is to get all their numbers to put together. The saucers run in 12 to 1, and the big boilers can go about the same.
And you've got a complete set in both, haven't you now?
I have, yes.
Well done. What's your proudest moment on the farm? Something you'll never forget?
I've got to say, our generations that are coming on, which the farm will survive yet for many, many years to come. To have your own 2 boys and a grandson, I think it would make anybody proud.
Yeah, well said. Looking back on your life in Bungaree, are there any local characters or neighbours who've had a significant impact on you, either personally or professionally?
No, not really, but I still can remember some of the old characters that many years ago, there was a chap once a week, he'd go past on his little B250 tractor with a sugar bag over his back full of bottles. He'd have a day at the pub and he'd crawl home on the tractor with his bag, and if he had a mishap, he'd break all these bottles in the bag. And then there was another one, he used to push the push bike home, but if he'd had too many, he had to walk the bike home then, and that's their only mode of transport. But no, just some of the funny things that you remember that happened years ago.
What time of the day do you get your best work done?
Oh, probably night time, because it puts the pressure on a bit. If it's going to rain, you work a bit harder.
What's the most unusual animal you've ever encountered with on the farm, and what happened?
Oh, probably when I was first married, there was down near the creek, there was a snake, and I never used to like letting them go, and there was one I even brought home. I didn't kill him, but I brought him home, I had him by the tail, and every time he'd bend up to strike at you, give him a shake, and I brought him home, and just to show Lorraine and the challenge of it, and he's still up there in that cupboard today in a bottle of metho.
Oh, is that the one?
That is the one.
Really? I remember you were quite handy picking them up by the tail, giving them a shake.
Yeah.
If the farm could talk, what do you think it would say to you?
Just keep farming.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Oh, probably my kindness.
Yeah.
I'm a bit like Kamal, be kind unto others.
Nice. If you could give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would you say?
Well, I don't think maybe I would have liked to travel a bit more of Australia. I think I chose to keep your money and put it into farming more so, but I perhaps would have liked to travel more of Australia. But anyway, that's my choice and haven't done it. And at this stage of my life, my eyesight's failing, so I've just got to be sensible about it and probably just stay put and be careful.
Is there a couple of influential people in your life? They could be dead or alive?
Oh, yes, there is one chap that I do know of. He's in Probus. I think he's 94 and he's as active as, he still goes to his farm, he enjoys his cattle. And I said to him one day, what would be the worst? Because he is a little bit deaf. And I said, what would be the worst? Losing your hearing or losing your eyesight? And he said, oh no, I must have my eyesight because I've got to go to the cattle market.
Yeah, right. He's 94.
Oh yes, yeah, and active as well as can be.
And if you could have a coffee or a cold beer with anyone, who would you choose?
I can't name anyone just offhand, but there are some people that in the past that I can recall that they're people that are just so happy that when they laugh, you laugh with them.
And if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Bungaree. I'm very happy here.
Well, Dad, it's been a fascinating chat. I've actually learned a lot about you in this last hour or so thank you for your time.
Well, It's my pleasure.
That's a wrap up for today's episode of Salt of the Earth Farm Stories, coming to you from Bungaree, Victoria. A big thanks to my father, Ian Grigg, for sharing his farming experiences. We hope you enjoyed today's chat and took away something valuable. Don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, keep your hands dirty and your spirits high.
Salt of the Earth Farm Stories is proudly brought to you by Grigg Media.